Hey, Mike with Nerd Problems Gaming here, and today's video will be covering another new Nintendo Switch eShop sale and 10 more great games worth buying, so let's get into it. The first game is DNF Duel, Who's Next? Now this game is a 2D fighting game based on a side-scrolling beat-em-up RPG. And you'll be able to play as several different fighters from this original game, Dungeon Fighter Online. Now the fighting style throughout this game can be either challenging or simplistic depending on what accessibility options you choose to use. For example, a lot of the super moves for your characters have been streamlined where you can simply push a direction and a button to unleash that powerful move. You can use your standard fighting attacks, special move inputs like from Street Fighter and other classic games. That would just simply give you a better use of your mana or MP when you use these attacks. So it's kind of cool where you have that more in-depth option as you play or a more simplistic version that's more accessible for new players. But with this accessibility also comes the fact that you can really hone in on your character's specific move sets, and you'll really need to anticipate your enemy's moves as well. And so it adds a little bit more depth to the game in that sense, where you'll need to learn the patterns of your other characters and fighting styles that your enemies are using if you hope to survive. On top of that, each character really has a unique feel. Unlike some fighting games where many of the characters are just reskins of others, in this one, each character really felt unique and different. Another cool element is that you can actually convert some of your damage into MP, which can let you use some of your super abilities. And so you'll need to strategically manage this throughout the fights if you hope to survive. It has your standard arcade mode, a versus mode, online play, but it also has a really cool survival mode. And how this works is you'll go through a number of fights. It might be 25 fights, 50 fights, 100 fights, whatever the case might be. And then after each battle, you'll actually be able to upgrade some different stats for your character, like their attack or their defense or various things like that. And so it's a kind of a cool feature, adding a little bit of an RPG element to the game in this survival mode. If you like classic 2D fighting games, I think this one's definitely worth checking out. The next game is Cyber Citizen Shockman 2. And so this game is more of an arcade action platformer, similar to classics from the Mega Man series. Again, it has some different side-scrolling levels that are standard to the Mega Man action platforming type series, but there's also some shoot-'em-up levels thrown in the mix as well. Again, as I mentioned, it can be very challenging because it does have sort of that arcade feel to it where you only have one life for your character and you'll need to clear the entire level. If you die, you can continue basically as much as you want, but you'll have to replay that full level from the beginning. So it's definitely challenging in that sense where you don't have multiple guys or checkpoints throughout the levels. However, one nice element to this is that it does have save states to it, and so you can save states as you get to bosses or challenging elements of the game to learn the patterns of enemies, different things like that, to make your playthrough a little bit more accessible and enjoyable. It has some great retro-inspired music, again, feeling very similar to the Mega Man series. And so if you like that style of action platforming, I think I'd recommend checking this game out as well. The next game is Dinobreak. And so Dinobreak is a retro survival horror inspired survival horror game based on similar titles like Resident Evil and Dino Crisis. And so the plot isn't overly extensive in this game. Dinosaurs have run amok and are terrorizing the city, and you play as one of the survivors and need to find a way out and escape this apocalyptic dino outbreak. And so it features very classic survival horror graphics, similar to titles from the PS1 and early Resident Evil titles. And it also features that style of controls as well. So it's not going to be really modern controls. It's more of that bird's eye view camera angle and tank controls. And so get used to that. Or if you, again, enjoy that style of classic survival horror, that's more so what this game is based around and feels like. It has a very similar playstyle as well, where there's some puzzle elements. There's also a variety of weapon types that you can find. There's different healing herbs and ammo containers you can find, and you'll take on several different types of dinosaurs like T-Rexes, Raptors, Triceratops, and more. Again, it can feel challenging if you're not used to that retro style tank controls, but I think once you figure that out, or if you like classic survival horror, this one's worth checking out as well. The next game is the Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster bundle. And so this is actually a great collection of some of the best titles from the Final Fantasy series. It's the original Final Fantasy up through Final Fantasy VI. They've all been remastered and redone with new pixel art style and enhancements. These are many of my favorite RPGs of all time, and it's really great to be able to revisit these on a modern console and with that portable feature that the Switch has. On top of that, there's also some more orchestrated enhancements, so there's music enhancements to the game, but you can switch back and forth between the original soundtrack and this new enhanced version for any of the versions that you're playing. If you're looking for a chance to relive many of these great classics, I would definitely recommend this bundle, or if you want to pick up any of these games individually, they all seem to be on sale right now as well. The next game is Howl. And so Howl is a unique turn-based tactical puzzle game, and you're actually playing as a young deaf girl as she's trying to survive a plague that is spreading across the land that's turning people into raging beasts. And so they're hearing this crazy howl sound, and that's transforming people into these monsters, but thankfully you're immune because you're deaf. And so you'll need to go through a bunch of different challenging puzzles in sort of a tactical turn-based grid. And so you'll need to strategically move your character around the map, utilize her abilities to either escape from danger or take out these monsters in a variety of different puzzles. On top of that, as you go through the game, you'll unlock several new abilities, giving you new enhancements and opportunities to revisit earlier levels that maybe have been too challenging, or to come at them from a different angle to get better results. It's a cool concept, and I think if you like puzzle games or games that are based around tactical RPGs, I think you'll like this one as well. The next game is Backpack Hero. Now, Backpack Hero is a lot of game types mixed into one. It's basically a roguelike, turn-based RPG dungeon crawler meets village builder with some deck building and inventory management thrown in the mix as well. And so you'll actually play as a young mouse character whose village has been destroyed, and you'll need to repair the village by dungeon diving and collecting valuable treasures within dungeons hidden throughout the city. And so as I mentioned, the combat is more turn-based, but it also has sort of a deck builder feel to it as well. Because as you explore the dungeons, you'll have different items that you need to place in your backpack, and you'll be able to activate them accordingly. Now, what's cool with this is that it pulls into that inventory management side of things, where you'll be organizing and expanding your backpack over time, placing new items in there. But another cool feature is that depending on where you place the items and how you organize them, it could add additional bonuses to your different weapons and items. So again, maybe you're placing a helmet somewhere in your bag, and that's going to add defense to your character. Or again, maybe you attach gems or other items to weapons. Maybe it imbues it with an element or additional power. And so it's really cool to have that inventory management going on to optimize your strategy to survive through the dungeons, but also those deck building type elements as you activate those abilities in this turn-based RPG style combat. I think if you like roguelike RPGs, this is another cool one worth checking out. The next game is the Borderlands 3 Ultimate Edition. And so this game is a first-person shooter meets RPG with some very addicting gameplay and over-the-top characters and funny storyline. And again, this game takes place 7 years after the events of Borderlands 2 and continues the crazy adventures. And so you'll run into many of the same characters from earlier in the series, as well as some new additions, but you'll play as a new vault hunter that's trying to take on and defeat an evil vault cult. And so again, the gameplay is very addicting. It's more of a looter shooter style gameplay. So first person shooters where enemies will constantly be dropping weapons and items that you can use to upgrade and power up your character. And it does have those RPG elements as well, where you can level up your character, making them more powerful. And so when you start the game, there's different character classes you can choose from, each with their own really unique play style and feel to them. But on top of that, they each have their own unique skill tree that you can build out throughout the game as well. On top of that, you can play this game in local co-op with a friend, and so that's really cool. There's hundreds of weapons to discover, tons of different side quests, and as I mentioned, fast-paced first-person shooter combat and very addicting gameplay. And so if you like first-person shooter RPG games, I would highly recommend it. The next game is the Rumblefish Plus. And so it's an odd name, but the game itself is a 2D fighting game with a couple unique twists to it as well. And so instead of just your standard fighting game where you have your inputs, you have your super moves that you can unleash, your characters will actually have a defense meter as well as an offense meter. And so as you're fighting throughout combat, those will fill up, and when your offense meter is full, you'll be able to unleash a specific offensive special move, or when your defense meter gets full, you could unleash a special defense move. And then on top of that, when those are both full at the same time, you also have the option of unleashing a special critical move for your character. And so it's a really cool concept that I haven't really seen in fighting games, and I thought it was a unique twist, making it really fun. It has a cool anime art style to the game as well. There's lots of fun characters to choose from. There's an arcade mode, versus mode, and online mode as well. So if you're looking for another cool 2D fighter, I would recommend checking it out. The next game is Blasphemous 2. And so this game is an intense, dark, Souls-like Metroidvania game and really follows in the footsteps of the original. Now this game takes place after the events of the original game and the latest DLC expansion for that, and you once again will take on the role of the Penitent One as you try and take on hordes of evil and saving the land. And so again, it returns to its cool, dark pixel art style, featuring tons of gory content and intense monsters that you'll need to fight along the way. It also features challenging combat like the original, where you'll need to learn the patterns and move sets of enemies if you hope to survive. But another cool element to this game is there's a lot more customability for your character. And so for example, when you start the game, you'll have 3 different weapons that you can choose from, each one having a unique feel and playstyle to them, but also each one has its own unique skill tree that you can expand along the way as well. You'll also find different items and skills you can unlock along the way, different relics and more. And so the gameplay is pretty addicting. There's a vast world to explore and just a really cool environment. And it's definitely one of the best Metroidvania games to come out in recent years. And so if you haven't played Blasphemous 2 yet, I would definitely recommend it. The final game on today's list is Blossom Tales 2. And so this is a top-down action-adventure game that's very similar to classic Legend of Zelda titles. And so you'll actually play as Lily, a young girl, as she goes on a quest to save her brother that was kidnapped by the evil Minotaur King. And so similar to the original game, the story is actually told through a grandpa telling his grandchildren a bedtime story. And so occasionally they'll be breaking the fourth wall where the kids will be talking to the grandpa as you're playing through the game, and that creates some unique scenarios that are a lot of fun. But overall, the game itself really feels like that classic Legend of Zelda exploration style game. And so you'll be going through a variety of classic dungeons throughout the game where you'll need to find specific items or weapons that can help you solve puzzles, clear challenges, and take on bosses within the dungeons. On top of that, there's a lot of secrets to find and a large world to explore where you'll be able to collect items to create potions for your characters. You'll be able to find hidden heart containers to boost your max life. Other items you can find to unlock new abilities for your character through dojos throughout the land, and much more. If you like classic action adventure games, this is another one worth playing as well. Well, again, that wraps up our video on this latest Nintendo Switch eShop sale and 10 more great games worth buying. If you like this video, be sure to hit that like button as it really helps out the channel. And if you're going to pick up any of these games or have played them before, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you'd like to help support the channel, pick out content and more, consider becoming a patron of ours over at nerdproblemsgaming.com/Patreon. And if you like videos like this on video games, board games, and everything nerdy, check out one of our other videos here. And if you haven't done so yet, be sure to subscribe and turn on the bell notifications to get the latest updates of new nerd videos we put out, and to make sure that you can take advantage of these great deals on any future sale videos we put out. But once again, thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you more soon.